Welcome to the Sales with Bob podcast, where we give practical tips and strategies to help sales closers become legends and owners, coaches, and course creators build elite sales teams. Let's go. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Sales with Bob podcast. I'm Bob, and we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about script and framework. All right. And we're going to kind of compare them a little bit. And really what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about why I really think you should not be using a script and the value of using a framework. Now, when I talk about not using a script, I'm not talking about it altogether. So I'll explain that. But generally, I'd say the way most people are using it, you don't want to be doing that anymore. So let's go there first. So let's just talk about scripts in general. So there's definitely quite a few people out there that will teach you to write up a script, will get you to follow the script pretty much word for word, maybe tell you like you can go off it a little bit. You have a script that you're literally following on your call, or they'll even get you to a point where like, hey, they want you to memorize it, things like that. So there's a few different things with that, I think, that are really important. I think one is when you're following a script, it's really hard to, I think, bring yourself to the conversation, right? Because you're so focused on the script itself that you're losing out on the real personal connection. Because part of the personal connection is like going with the flow of the conversation, and a script can't do that. A script is telling you exactly where to go at every moment. And I don't think that's just not how communication happens. That's not how connection happens with people. And I think connection is super important when it comes to sales. And so if you can't do that, then it's going to get in the way of what you're doing. So I just think scripts are bad altogether. I think especially on the front end when you're using it, when you don't know it well, it's going to be super clear and obvious, going to be super choppy. It's just going to be kind of a mess. And then even as you get to know it better, it still just comes off as fake, as not real. Even if you get good at adding inflection and tonality and different things like that, it still just isn't the same as like a genuine personal connection where you're having a real conversation with someone. So again, for me personally on a call, I think scripts, no good. I would not use them. And I would not, anyone that I've coached or that I work with or that I've managed, I will be telling them no scripts. Where I do think scripts can be helpful though, is I do think it'd be helpful to write out a script just as an example, just to think through and brainstorm the flow of like, what would a typical conversation kind of sound like, look like? So I think that could be useful for you if you are a closer on a deal. I also think if you're managing a team, it can be helpful to write out a script for them as an example. Now, within that, because I have done that before, just because some people like to kind of like see it down, that's helpful for them just to get a sense. When I do that, I make sure I say like, listen, this is in my voice. This is the way I would say it. You probably wouldn't say it that way. However, what happens is when I do that, they see certain places that I go and certain types of questions that I ask and things like that, that are very helpful for them. And so that allows them to grow. So I do think writing out a script is more of a learning tool than an actual tool that you want to utilize on a call, if that makes sense. So again, I do think they can be useful. I just don't think they should be used on calls. All right. So I know like definition of script is kind of like to use the script like on the call or in something. So maybe we call it something else, but that's the way I think a script should be used. Don't think it should be used on a call. However, I do feel like a framework is very, very helpful. I think it's important. I think it's really good and important to have a solid framework on a call. Because although you want the conversation to be natural, you want to be interacting with the person, things like that, like having a framework, what that does is that gives you a path, right? But it's more of like a general path. Maybe you're on the right side of the path, or the left side of the path, or you're walking a little slower, walking a little faster, right? Or you're looking at, something over here or over there, right? But the idea is there's more room to just kind of be you and kind of guide the conversation a little bit so it feels more natural. But at the same time, it helps you to stay on track and make sure you're hitting kind of the critical areas that are going to help you get to where you want to go, right? So that can allow you to lead on the call to get them ultimately to the end. And so it kind of gives you that pathway or that blueprint to follow, if you will. So that's why I think a framework is really important. I think it's really helpful just to kind of keep you on track, give you kind of like, think about like in bowling, they put up I don't even know what they call them, but the things on the side so it doesn't go into the gutter, right? And so you throw the ball and it's always going to kind of keep it going down to kind of hit the pins. It's kind of like that idea is the way I think of a framework. So I do think a framework is great to have. I think it's important. I think there's not like one framework that I think is like the definitive. I think there are certain aspects of a framework that are pretty much always going to be there. And I will say, so in terms of framework, so I'm going to give an example of kind of what I would consider like a solid framework that's going to work predominantly for most offers that are out there. I will caveat that with there are obviously going to be nuances and differences. You know, if you're heavier into like B2B, like very heavy B2B, sometimes people will say it's B2B, but it's really not. It's more B2C. Even if it's like building a business, it's still definitely more on the B2C place. But anyways, if it's like clearly B2B, like, you know, your business focus and it's more of maybe a longer sales cycle, and then there's going to, this example I give would not necessarily exactly fit. There are definitely the pieces of it would still probably be in there, but just might be in a little bit different order. And there might be other things put in there, and it will be kind of, won't be on just like one call necessarily. So just keep that in mind. Although, you know, most of you, I think they're going on here are going to be focused more on like high ticket sales, like in the coaching space, that sort of thing. And that's really ultimately what this is focused on. So I'll run through that and just give you a sense of what I think is like a really solid framework that I think can be helpful for you. And I'll give you some pieces in there. I'm not going to dig into each one super deeply because I'll probably do that on different podcasts as I'm running through. So the first thing that I think is really important is to build rapport. I know some people will say, well, no, you don't need to build rapport. Just get in, you know, just get focused, get right to work. And I've heard it. I don't agree with it. Earlier on, I would kind of go like up and down. Okay, I see their point. Like I'm the person who really likes to like see everything and hear everyone's perspective. But now as I've been doing this a lot longer, you can see these gray hairs. I've definitely kind of, after I've seen so much, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of calls, like I really have firmed on certain things, and rapport is one of them. I do think rapport is important. I think it's super helpful. I think that it helps kind of bring down walls and creates a level of connection that makes people feel more comfortable, more likely to open up, build trust, those sort of things. The key to rapport, though, is, again, I'm not getting super in depth in this, is that it's real, though. And so if you just have like your, basic line that you say to everyone to build rapport, and you're not feeling it, you're just doing it to do it, and they sense that, then it's not going to work. It's actually going to probably have the opposite effect, and it's actually going to come back to bite you because it'll come across as super fake. So when you're doing rapport, like actually genuinely want to connect with the person in front of you, want to know like how they're doing, how their week was, how they're, oh, cool, you have kids. Oh, me too. Like make a connection point, or even an opposite connection point, right? So like one of the things, so back when I used to do a lot more calls, so so I'm from Massachusetts, so I don't know if that's good or bad for you guys, but anyways, so like when I would get people on a call from say like New York or something like that, for those of you who don't know, Boston, New York has a tendency to have a pretty big rivalry in terms of like sports, things like that. So I would like joke about that on the call, and usually they'd laugh, I'd laugh, and it just creates some rapport, right? So those are opposites, but it's just creating some commonality in some way and having fun with it. So, but the thing is to keep it real. If it's not real, your rapport is actually going to like hurt you if you're just going through the motions. All right. So anyways, but I do think it's rapport. So it's quick though, so just like a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes kind of thing. Then from rapport, what you're going to do is you're going to do a quick frame. So here's what's key with frame: short, sweet, to the point, and more casual, right? So, because what I've seen so often when I get guys on deals is they'll get in, they'll do a good job of rapport, like, hey, yeah, good, awesome, like there's all, smiling, and then they'll get to frame and they'll completely change who they are, right? It's all like light and fun, and they're like, okay, hey, so what we're going to do today, and they like break it down, and they have this very long explanation. We're going to do these 3 things, then we're going to do this, and it's like, all of a sudden it went from like, okay, cool, we got rid of the feeling of a sales call, and then we brought it back 2 to 3 minutes later with the frame. So with your frame, just keep it super, super simple, right? Like, so for me, like an example of like a super simple frame would just be like, hey, cool, like, why don't we go ahead and get started here? What I want to do in the front end is I just want to kind of get to know you a little bit, kind of understand where you're at, so I can understand that, get a sense of if we can help you out. And if it looks like we can, and you're a good fit for us, the one I would do is I'll definitely share a bit more about what we do here, so you can get a sense of if it's a good fit for you. And if those both line up, then what we'll do is go ahead and get you started here at the end of the call. Does that sound good? That's it. Cool. Yep. Good. I explained. I'm going to get to know them. So it gives me the space to be able to get to know them, ask them all the questions I need to ask them. And then I will pitch, right? I will share what is about us. And then I have actually said too, and this I think is important, is that we will make a decision at the end of this call. That doesn't mean it will always happen, but I think it's good to put it out there, put it in their head. They know it. They've accepted it. And I know some of you are thinking, look, yeah, but aren't they going to say no? Or they don't, well, I don't know if I'll make a decision. No, I would say like do this a long time. And I wouldn't even say 1%. I say maybe 0.01% of the time that might happen. Most people just go with the flow there, but keep that frame super simple. All right. So we got report, we got frame. Then we're going to what I would say is probably going to be should be the longest portion of your call. And this is your discovery. And you can break up the discovery. I'm just giving you discovery in a very general, big picture way. You can break up discovery into a couple different things, and you can not use the word discovery and talk about other stuff. I've done it different on different deals. But basically what discovery is like you're basically unpacking where are they at, where they want to go. That's pretty much what you're doing with discovery. Okay. So where are they at? So current situation. So some I might just say, instead of saying discovery, I might say current situation, goals, right? Those would be the kind of the two pieces. So on the front end, and there's some situations where you might want to flip those. I would say in most cases, I think there's a lot of good to basically doing current situation first and then goals. And I'll explain why in a minute. But so current situation, so you're going to break down like where are they at, what are they doing for work, and obviously every offer is going to be a little different. But I would say get into the details. Within that, you should be starting to get at pain, but you're not necessarily digging at it quite yet. But you're pointing it out. And that's something I will talk about more in another episode. But you're unpacking it all. Get curious here, right? Like really ask a lot of questions, and again, relate that back to them personally, how it makes them feel listening. So you're going to start to touch on the emotional side of it, kind of set the plate for later, kind of talking through all those things, and get specifics though too. So get specifics, but also get emotion. Talk about the whole thing. You want to have a really clear picture of where they're at right now in their life, and what it is about that where they're at right now that makes them want to instead be here. Get a clear picture. And what you're really doing is I talk a lot about gap, and what you're really talking about is you're getting at the bottom of the gap right now. Okay. Bottom of the gap. And so you're going to talk through all those things, get all those details. And then from there, you're going to transition, say, okay, cool. Hey, appreciate sharing all that. I'll talk about buy-ins more. I'm very big on buy-ins. I'll do probably I might do a whole episode on buy-ins, or maybe I'll put some other things in it. But I would say you're going to do some buy-in there in terms of like acknowledging the present situation and kind of the need for like, hey, you really want to change this, it sounds like, and that's probably why we're on this call. Yeah. Okay, cool. Get some agreement there. And they say, well, okay, so cool. So like, where ultimately do you want to go? Like, what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to achieve related to kind of what we're talking about? And then you get into goals. And I would say with that, again, get detailed, make them say numbers, give a really clear picture, get them to say like, hey, listen, give me an example of like, what would a typical week or month look like once you've reached and attained those goals, right? How would it affect you? How would it affect your family? How would you feel differently than you feel now, right? And just really diving into the details there. So now we're actually creating the top of the gap, right? So we created bottom, now we're creating the top of the gap. And within there, again, it's painting a really clear picture, letting them feel it. Then from there, so that's kind of what I would call discovery. And then I would get into what I would call kind of like pain. Now, I might call that different things. It depends again on the circumstance, but we'll just leave it at that for now. Pain, desire. So what you're going to do there is once you kind of are finishing the goal point, this is when you're going to basically be saying like, hey, cool, this was great. This is awesome. This sounds like a really good goal. Would you say that this is like super important for you to do right now? Like you are like ready to go and get there. Yes. Cool. Again, buy-in, get into that another time. Then from there, say, okay, well, cool. That's awesome. That's great. I'm excited for you right now. But here's the thing, like you haven't taken action yet. Right. And we haven't gotten there yet. So let's just say you decided not to take action. You didn't do anything. And so therefore you weren't moving towards those goals. What does that mean for you? Right? Where does that leave you? And so you're going to take that away. You're going to take that goal away. You're going to take that whole like vision and experience away from them, and then bring them back to their current situation. And this is where you're going to dig more into that pain. And this is where you're going to really push in. And again, please understand, I should have said this right at the beginning, like nothing that we're doing is to be disingenuous or manipulative or anything. Like we're genuinely trying to help them understand, here is where you are, here is where you want to be. And the reality is people are motivated and moved to action based on emotion, whether we like it or not, whether we show it or not. That is what we are motivated by. So in my mind, I'm trying to help the person in front of me. I think that's super important to understand. I'll definitely be talking more about that on other episodes. That's critical to me. I'm very big on like actually caring about the person in front of me. So anyway, but then at that point in time again, so I'm digging into that pain. So like, okay, yeah, it goes away. You just get stuck where you are. Like, how much have you already lost out on, not doing that the last couple of years or whatever? How much financially, how much emotionally, how much relationally has that impacted you? What would that, like, if that happened like a year moving forward, like how much more would that impact you? How would you feel about that? How much more to impact like your relationship with your wife, your kids, whatever it might be? It has to obviously be relevant, but really dig in. This is where you're really digging into the pain. And really what it is it's about getting them to a point of they just really owning the fact that like they really do not want to stay where they are. Right. And this isn't turning to like a nice to have. This is like a must have. Like I have to do this. And people generally only feel that when they like dig deep enough to be honest. And that's what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring that honesty out of them. And so that's really what you're doing at that point. And again, there are going to be like if you're on deals and offers where you're dealing with more like affluent people that are more successful, it's going to be a little bit different in terms of how you do that, but there's still going to be pain there. It's just different than the common pain that we think of. Again, not going to get into that a lot of detail, but you still can do that. Because I know a lot of people go, why I deal with people that have like tons of money and blah blah blah. Cool, I get it. There's other things that can motivate them. They're still on the call for a reason, and that means there's a pain point, there's a desire point that you can push into. Anyway, so okay, cool. So we get into that. So we get into discovery, we do all that, we get into the pain, all those things. Then at that point in time, again, you're going to get a lot of buy-in. This is one of your most important buy-in points is once you've kind of gone through kind of that pain desire of like, okay, cool. Like, can we like be real with each other? Understanding where you're at and understanding everything we've just talked about, assuming that everything we're going to talk about here is going to be a fit. Are you ready to take action and do something about this? Get a buy-in. All right. If you don't, I would encourage you to go back and do some more in terms of building your gap. Okay. So you get that buy-in and then you're going to move on to your pitch. Now, with your pitch, and this is, I would say across the board, keep your pitch very clear and concise. It should not be super long. All right. It just like you're going to lose people. So you got to understand all this is new for them. And if you start just going on for 10, 15, 20 minutes, like whatever your pitch is, like super long, super filled in. And a lot of times we think like, oh, if I give them all this information, they're going to be like amazed and it's going to be awesome. And it doesn't work that way. It gets overwhelming to people. And then what happens, it actually gets less clear. And then more doubts come in. And now all the emotion that you built before that is 100% gone. Right. And now they're just like, oh, okay, wait, I don't get it. And they're just trying to figure things out and they get lost. And you're just like, you're done, right? It doesn't matter what you've done before that, you've just kind of destroyed it all, right? So like however many pillars you have, people always talk about having 3 pillars, like all that. I don't care about the number. It can be 3, it can be 4. One of the deals, I've done is like a 3 and a 3, actually. It's like kind of more like, what do you do and how do you do it kind of thing. But the point is it should be concise and it should be clear. The clarity is super important. Just like, hey, so what we're going to do with you first is we're going to do this, then this, then this, then this. That's how we're going to get you the result. And the way that we're going to do that, what we're going to do to help make sure that happens is, hey, we're going to have this amazing community, right? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to give you all the resources that you need to make sure you're set, right? And then we're going to give you this amazing coaching support. This is how the coaching works. And then that basically makes sure you have everything you need for you to be successful. Does that sound like it would help you get to whatever their goal is? Boom, that's it. Yes, no, whatever. Okay. Now, will you run into people once in a while that really want to dig in more? They have questions? Sure. And I would say respect that to a degree. Make sure you keep control. And at some point in time, you may need to be like, listen, you're going to have a million questions. But the reality is that's what the program's for. And for us right now, the best thing we can do is to decide if this is a good fit for you, because otherwise you'll just keep asking questions and we'll never actually get anywhere, right? Again, you may say it a little differently, but you may have to do that with some people. But I also do think you need to dive in a little bit more with certain people. Okay. But the most important thing with pitch, keep it concise, keep it clear. That's it. And then you kind of move in from there. Okay. So basically that's your pitch. And then with pitch, you are getting into buy-in again, right? So you're getting them to buy in. Okay, cool. This is all we talked about. This is like, we decided you were a good fit. We already told you that. Now the question is, are we a good fit? They say yes or no, right? So that's at the point to say, okay, based on everything that I've shared with you, Do you feel like this can help you with your goal? And is this something that you're ready to do? Oh, I don't know. And again, everyone's like, oh, I don't know. It kind of depends on like how much it costs, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, I get it. 100%. I understand. Everyone asks that, and we'll get into that. I promise. What I want to know is like price, investment aside, right? Like assuming that that all works out and we can come to an arrangement. Outside of that, does this sound like this is what you're looking for and you're ready to get going? Right. So you kind of just make sure you push that aside and get that buy-in. Then you're going to get into pricing, right? You're going to dropping price from there. And when you drop price, keep it. This is another one. Keep it super simple. Now, I have a lot of pricing strategies. I'm not going to get into that on this, but I will get into that another time. I'll talk through that in another episode. But in terms of pricing, keep it simple. However you're doing it in terms of discounts, things like that, when you do that, when you get to a point at which you're actually going to drop the price, okay, and you may have like a discount that came from a webinar or whatever, so that you can give. So let's say, I don't know, whatever, I'm just going to make up a price. So let's say you're listed at 15K and they're giving a $3,000 discount because you came to the webinar, so it's down to 12. I'm just making something up, right? So you'll kind of get in there like, okay, cool, yeah. So like everything we talked about, all the coaching, the community, everything, every step along the way, all the resources you need. Basically, what's going to come down is it's generally an investment of 15K. You were on that webinar, and so as a result of that, X coach has said that we'd give you a 3K discount. So obviously, if we're able to move forward here on this call, I can give you that 3K discount, and that would get you down to 12K. So what do you think? Do you want to get started? And right there, say that confidently. Stop after you say that. Don't be like, and I know it's kind of a lot, or, oh, and I know, like, just understand, like, again, a lot, like, once you've dropped that price, you went to 15, 12, and you just leave, just be quiet. Let them respond, right? See how they react so you know how you need to react, okay? Super, super, super important. And it's super important that you learn to get comfortable with the pricing that you are giving to people. I've seen so many people have their own personal limiting beliefs as closers that they bring into that part of the call, and it makes it really tough to close. So keep that in mind. A little bit of a side note there. But anyway, so you drop that price. Then from there, now within price drop, obviously you're going to be doing a lot with pricing, and there's going to be some strategies around there. Again, we're not getting into a lot of details with that, but there's going to be some, things you do in terms of kind of dropping, payment plans, funding, and every situation is a little bit different, but you do that. And then from there, ideally, if it all works out, then you close the person. Now within there, obviously, depending upon what happens, you're going to need to go back potentially. You're going to need to overcome some obstacles, objection handling, if you will. Hopefully, one thing I will say about that is if you've done a really good job on the front end, you should have far less objections later on, but we'll get into objection handling another time. But I will say is when you get to this point, all I'll say is make sure you really try to uncover what the true objection is. Do that, like you can spend so much time going down rabbit holes that aren't actually where you should be going. So again, whole nother episode I'll put out there, but really important that you're assessing what the real obstacle is so that you can really address that versus other things. So that's critical. And that's basically it. That's the framework. And again, feel free to utilize it, morph it, change it to your kind of how it fits your offer. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below and I'll keep an eye out and I can kind of give any help. If you have a certain specific offer and you're curious, like, oh, how would it fit in this situation? Or I'm like, I've thought about doing this, more than happy to try to help you out. Reach out to me in any way if you guys need some help on your offer with anything like that. Okay. But anyway, so that's the deal. All right. So, hey, focus heavy on framework and you can morph it and change it as you go. But what I gave you is kind of like a pretty good framework. I would say most aren't going to really be that different than that in terms of effectiveness. And yeah, that's basically it. All right. So if you're using script, stop using the script. All right. If you want to brainstorm some stuff and kind of learn what it looked like, you can trade scripts and all that and learn from it. Awesome. But build a really solid framework. Use that framework as your guide and go out there and close some more deals. All right. Till next time, go ahead and please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. You can do that for me. I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to be putting a ton of good content in here. And as always, if you have other questions, other things that you want to see me cover, go ahead and drop those in there too. I'll look at the suggestions and I'll definitely use that to build out future episodes. All right. Appreciate your time and be well.